Well, good Saturday morning, everyone, and good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to Daylight Savings Time. We are reading The Magick of Aleister Crowley. This is the edition right here. Notice the stele of revealing. As we get into it a little more, we'll realize the importance of this, I believe, 25th dynasty funeral stele of Ankh-Afna Khonsu, and you might actually want to have one in your home as at least a magical artifact. And if you have this book, all you have to do is use this. And if you want to even do the back of the stele, that's on the inside back cover. So a little treat there. We are on chapter 0. That's how these things work. Frequently asked questions about Aleister Crowley. I begin with an epigram from Crowley's poem, The Poet, which he published in The Stone of the Philosophers in a little tiny, wonderful little book that came out, I think, in 1904, called Conks on Pox. Bury me in a nameless grave. I came from God the world to save. I brought them wisdom from above, worship and liberty and love. They slew me, for I did disparage, therefore, religion, law, and marriage. So be my grave without a name, that the earth may swallow up my shame. Aleister Crowley is dead. He died of natural causes on December 1st, 1947, at the age of 72. That's just how old I am. He was a young man. At his residence in Netherwood, Hastings. His body was discovered by his landlord, who reported that only moments earlier he had heard the old man pacing back and forth across the floor of his second-story apartment. There was no one with him when the end came. Therefore, reports that his last words were, quote, "I'm perplexed," are patently false. Contrary to many reports, he did not die a raving lunatic. He was bright and witty to the end. In fact, two of his most extraordinarily brilliant works, the Book of Thoth and Magic Without Tears, were penned in the years just before his death. His last days were not spent in squalor and abject poverty. His modest residence in Hastings was a charming and reputable boarding house. Distortions of the facts surrounding his death are minor compared to those that still surround the events of his life. But it's not the purpose of this work to systematically rebut the mountains of misinformation that still denigrate the reputation of this remarkable man. This has been accomplished admirably in a variety of well-researched biographies, including the following works, which I do not hesitate to recommend. And remember, this is, I'm writing this in 1991, and I'm writing this a long time ago. But at the time, it was A Magical Life, a biography of Aleister Crowley by Martin Booth, an excellent biography. Do What Thou Wilt, A Life of Crowley by Lawrence Sutton, another excellent biography. And Per de Rabo, The Life of Aleister Crowley by Richard Kaczynski. Okay, that hands down by far is the best. You'll love it. It not only puts Crowley's life in minute, perfectly chronicled detail, but it also outlines and reviews the the life and biographies of the people surrounding Crowley and putting everything in a historical context. It's just brilliant. Even though the focus of this book is upon the importance of the ritual works of Aleister Crowley, I would be remiss in my responsibilities to the beginning student if I did not at the outset endeavor to disabuse the reader who has perhaps given credence to the misstatements and downright whoppers that continue to be perpetuated by religious zealots and tabloid journalists. Below are some frequently asked questions about Aleister Crowley. Now, these are frequently asked questions from people that don't know about Crowley or have heard the most absurd things. These are not really frequently asked questions by experienced, knowledgeable, or educated magicians, okay? So don't say, why do you need to do that? You don't have to tell me that. Well, this is for those people that still might be believing that crap. But I digress. Sorry about that. My answers are the result of 30 years at the time of research into every aspect of his life, interviews with individuals both here and abroad who knew and worked with him, including Major G.L. McMurtry and Dr. Francis Israel Regarde, and a review of the historic documents in the archives of Ordo Templi Orientis, the George Arendt's Research Library, Byrd Library, Syracuse University, and the University of Texas at Austin, and the Gerald York Collection currently housed at the Warburg Institute in the University of London. Frequently asked questions about Aleister Crowley. Here we go. Was Aleister Crowley a Satanist or a devil worshipper? Now, I'm going to digress here before I even go into reading this. It's 2021, okay? I've got lots of brilliant, wonderful, integritous, if that's a word, friends who proudly consider themselves Satanists and who proudly and with full sense of nobility consider themselves black magicians in technical terms. But in 1991, when I was writing this, most people considered those terms in a most superstitious and uneducated and unintellectual way. Their idea of a Satanist either was somebody who was so criminally insane that they performed all manner of atrocities and blamed it on their love for the Christian devil, Satan. And black magicians, in most people's minds, were people that intentionally tried to use psychic forces to hurt other people. Okay. We all now know and respect the non-dualistic attitudes of people that consider themselves and who proudly label themselves as Satanists and black magicians. But 30 years ago, in 1991, when I was writing this, it was not quite the same thing. And certainly 100 years ago, when Crowley was writing this, it was certainly not the same thing. Okay. So I'm saying right now, if you're willing to believe that, say, Hillary Clinton eats babies at a pizza parlor and drinks their blood and offers them to Satan, the Christian devil, if you're willing to still believe that, then you're willing to believe everything that everyone criticized Crowley for. So, excuse that digression, but keeping all of that in mind, here's my answers. Was Aleister Crowley a Satanist or a devil worshiper by those definitions? No. Although he can be misquoted and quoted out of context to suggest otherwise, Crowley was most certainly not a Satanist or a devil worshiper. There is no question that he seemed to enjoy his sinister reputation. It is also true that he loved to shock the shockable and was happy to allow anyone who was ignorant and superstitious enough to believe in a boogeyman devil to be afraid of him also. But in order to be a Satanist by the most common definition during Crowley's lifetime, one must acknowledge the reality of the Judeo-Christian spiritual worldview. A worldview that embraces the concept of a devil who is the all-evil opposite of a God who is all good. As Crowley repudiated the Judeo-Christian Muslim doctrines, including belief in the existence of their devil, there's no grounds whatsoever to charge that he was a Satanist. The devil does not exist, he said. It is a false name invented by the Black Brothers to imply a unity in their ignorant muddle of dispersions. A devil who had unity would be a god, unquote. It's true that there's much in the imagery of Crowley's writings that is dark and at first glance very terrifying. But if we view these works objectively, we find nothing in them any more frightening than the imagery we find in the Bible or any number of other religious literature, Eastern or Western. Crowley especially despised the hypocrisy and the spiritually restrictive aspects of established religions, especially Christianity. And he did not deny charges that his philosophy was anti-Christian. However, a careful examination of his writings reveals his profound understanding and respect for the pure spiritual impulse that is at the heart of all religions, including Christianity. His allusions in his writings to Satan, Lucifer, the devil, and so forth, are pertinent only within the self-referential documents of Thelema. They can only be understood and evaluated within those contexts and should only be disturbing or offensive to those individuals who, for whatever reasons, are unwilling or unable to do a little honest homework, or believe that Hillary Clinton eats baby pieces. Was he a black magician? Second question. At the beginning of chapter 8, you'll find a quote by Crowley that defines the term black magic in its strictest context. Okay, let me try to turn ahead and find that if I could. Let's see, what chapter are we working on here? Chapter 5, 7, 8. The single supreme ritual is the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. It is the raising of the complete man in a vertical straight line. Any deviation from this line tends to become black magic. Any other operation is black magic. If the magician needs to perform any other operation than this, knowledge and conversation, holy guardian angel operation. It is only lawful insofar as it is a necessary preliminary to that one work. However, the common definition of black magician is someone who willfully uses magical powers to harm others. Crowley was bound by multiple magical oaths to devote all his energies, intellectual, artistic, magical, and spiritual, toward the complete emancipation of the human race. His entire magical career, indeed, his entire magical life, was dedicated to that purpose. He most certainly did not fit the above definition of a black magician. But, as I said earlier, for those unwilling or unable to do a little objective homework, many of the magical operations Crowley chronicled in his diaries and books may, on the surface, appear to be works of black magic. For example, if you haven't read enough of Crowley's works to learn that Goetic demons are portions of the human brain, or that hell, into which the magician plunges in order to conquer and command these demons, is our own subconscious mind, or that the curses and restraints the magician uses in particular forms of black magic are merely techniques to isolate, focus, and direct our own natural mental abilities, then there's little chance of convincing you that these exercises are not black magic, and that those individuals who would try to better themselves by such spiritual practices are not black magicians. But what do you really think, Lon? Okay, what time we got here? I don't want to take us too late. Why did he call himself the Beast 666? Crowley's father was a lay preacher of the Plymouth Brethren, a fundamentalist Protestant sect. As a matter of fact, it was the sect, the Darbyites, that literally invented what we now consider to be this worldwide evangelical, born-again movement. Before that, people weren't talking about the rapture. They weren't talking about when you go to a religious television channel and see them strutting around talking about Jesus and hell and fire and damnation, you're talking about doctrine that was invented by this Darbyite Plymouth Brethren sect. It's that young. But I digress. Crowley's mother was a devout, Crowley says, fanatical member of the church. Together, they did their best to raise young Alec in the tenets of the faith. However, the youngster was a mischievous and headstrong lad, and his mother equated his behavior to the rebelliousness of the devil himself. In moments of aggravation, she called him the Beast 666. He loved it. And as he grew up, delighted in identifying with the name and the number as representative of all things joyously opposed to the spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and sexual restrictions by which oppressive spiritual and intellectual, emotional, He delighted in identifying with the name B666 and the number as representative of all things joyously opposed to the spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and sexual restrictions by which oppressive religions would enslave the human soul. I finally spit that out. Sorry. As a young man just beginning his study of Hebrew and Christian mysticism, Crowley discovered that the number 666, rather than being the number associated with evil, was especially sacred to the sun and to the heart chakra, or the psychic center in the human body, also called the Christ center. To understand why 666 is the magical number of the sun, we first refer to the Kabbalistic diagram of the Tree of Life and discover that the sphere of the sun is the sixth Sephirah, Tifereth. And that's it right there. Right there, 6. The sun and the heart chakra. Okay. A chimea, or a magical square of the sun, is a square composed of 36 squares, 6 by 6. Now a square for, say, Mars, which is the 5th Sephirah, would be a square 5 by 5. And square of Jupiter, which is the 4th Sephirah, would be a square 4 by 4. But the chimea, or the magic square of the sun, is a square 6 by 6, and it looks like that. And every line and every column adds up to 101. So you got the numbers 1 through 36, and you got them arranged in such a way that every line and every column adds up to 111. Add all of those together, you got the magic number 666, the number of the sun. Okay, I just showed you what I'm about to read. A chimea, or magic square of the sun, is composed of 36 squares 6 by 6. The numbers 1 through 36 are then arranged in such a way that every row and column add to the same number. That number is 111. And the sum of all the squares is 666. Like other blasphemies he would hijack from the Christian literature to express the dynamics of the new Aeon concepts, like the Whore of Babylon, Blood of the Saints, Cup of Abomination, etc. The term B666 was just another example of Crowley using concepts that in the past represented unholy terrors of an evil future, and redeeming them so that they presently represent the holy mysteries of an emerging new age. It's as simple and as unsatanic as that. Crowley explained why he called himself the B66 when he testified in court in a 1934 lawsuit. I wish I had space to reprint the entire testimony. But I just added this clip. Do you take to yourself the designation of the Beast 666? The lawyer asked him. Yes. Do you call yourself the Master Therian? Yes. What does Therian mean? Great wild beast. Do these titles convey a fair impression of your practice and outlook on life? Crowley. It depends on what they mean. The great wild beast and the beast 666 are out of the apocalypse? Crowley. It only means sunlight. 666 is the number of the sun. You may call me Little Sunshine. Okay, we have much more in the frequently asked questions, and we will take that up tomorrow. Because we've overstayed our welcome. We'll start tomorrow with, did he advocate or perform human sacrifices? So, until then, If you think I've come on early today, well, in California anyway, it's daylight savings time, and we've had to readjust our lives once again for no good reason. But anyway, the whole past year has been like that, hasn't it? Well, continue to be good to yourself. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Uh, and continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. As Aleister Crowley channeled in his book, The Book of the Law, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love and her will. See you tomorrow.